Hi everyone, I'm Shanti, the artist behind Shanti Finance. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you step by step how I painted this penguin and its baby with oil paints. Although it is wildlife painting, it is very simple and I have a very detailed tutorial to help you out with it. So
I'm starting off with the background, which is a simple background of clouds in the sky, and I'm using a lot of white mixed with blue for the background and the clouds in the sky. So I'm here using ultramarine blue and cobalt blue, kind of mixing it one off here and there a little bit, and sometimes I'm adding in a little bit of gray as well, and lots of white to it. And then I'm taking my hard bristle brush, round brush, and making some impression of clouds, darkening it here and there with a little bit more of Prussian blue. Somewhere I'm adding a little bit of gray, like I said already, and just making the impression of clouds, and then blending all of that together with a 2-inch blending brush. So that's gist of all of the background. Before I get started on the penguin itself, I would like to mention that if you are scared of the drawing itself, then I have a traceable available for the drawing part for you to copy from it, and it is linked below in the video description, so check that out. Now I'm starting with the penguin. You can see that in one area of the beak and a little bit area of the back behind the black area, I'm adding a little bit of what you can call a flesh tint. I'm mixing red with a little bit of yellow and a lot of white to get this color. Now I have mixed a very inky mixture of lots of Prussian blue, little bit of ultramarine blue, and some amount of black, and a little bit of Payne's gray as well. Mixing all of that, I'm creating this inky, almost black color. However, although it looks very black and dark, it is not really all black. Like I said, I'm mixing Payne's gray, lots of Prussian blue, and a little bit of black, and sometimes a little bit of cobalt blue or ultramarine blue as well, changing the color a little bit from place to place. And then I'm going around the outline area and establishing my darks first. Once I establish the darks, I'm adding a little bit of white to that mixture to create a very dark bluish gray, and coming back in the middle parts or the lighter areas. Because of how the reflection is, some of the areas are darker and some of the areas are lighter, although all of these are technically probably a very inky blackish blue color, but how the light reflects off the surface of the body of the penguin, the back of the penguin and the wings of the penguin, so I'm getting different colors in different areas. Continuing on, establishing the darks first. And you can see that some areas I'm making it extra dark, and some areas I'm adding it a little bit of white to make it a little bit lighter. This is just the first initial area. The entire painting is done on a wet on wet technique, so I started and finished it at one go. It took me, I think, about 3 hours or so to complete the start and complete the painting. It may be a little bit more. I generally don't keep track of how much time it took. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that I started and finished the entire painting at one go, so you do not have to let anything dry in between. Like I generally paint in glazes or layers, this is not the case. This is all wet and wet. Now, for the front part of the body, the trunk of the penguin, I can see that I'm creating a gray mix, a lot of white with a little bit of blue, and a touch of Payne's gray creates this gray. And then I'm coming back on the wings with a little bit darker version of that same gray, and creating different values. Now on the back of the penguin, I'm adding a little bit of that darker gray color as well. I'm adding very dark grays on the very edge of the trunk of the penguin, so as to create kind of like a roundish look. So if the edges are dark and the center part is lighter, it will create a darker look. can see that I'm adding some more darks, and with more darks I'm just mixing a very, very dark mix of Prussian blue and a little bit black, and creating the extra dark areas, coming in between the grays with the sharp end of my flat brush to create the lines on the wings and sharper edges. Same with the eyes. I'm first creating it with the flat brush, adding a little bit color. Then I'll come back with my detail brush and add a little bit of shadows around the eyes with a little lighter gray, and add a little pop of reflection in the eyeball as well. Now I am coming back with a much brighter white, although it kind of looks like white, but it is not white. It is a lighter mix of the same gray, which has a lot less gray or black or blue than it previously had, so I added a lot more white to it. And then in certain areas I'm adding a little bit of that flesh tint as well to give that bright lightened look. And I'm keeping on adding lights and lighter colors, just adding more and more white to the gray color. But even now it is not straight up white. I'm leaving the straight up white for the final details. And by details I mean when you see me coming back with the detail brush and create kind of like marks, which hints the feathers. To start off with, it will kind of look very, very ugly because it is like a lot of lines. But you see that all of them are going in one direction to follow the direction of feather, and that is very important whenever you paint wildlife, birds or animals. Follow the direction of fur and feather. That is what I'm doing right now. But once I come back with a lot of that white, and now I have switched on to white, which is getting mixed with the underlying layers of gray as I'm applying on it. So I need to keep on reloading the brush every now and then to get the bright highlights and the feathery texture. You can see that once I am zooming out of the painting, those lines are fading off because I'm adding layers on top of layers on top of layers for those feathers to get the lights and darks. Now I have mixed a darker gray and creating just spots in different parts of the back of the penguin. And you can see that for some areas it's getting a different shade of gray, and for the other areas it is getting another shade of gray. And you will see that with the different shades of gray that I'm creating, I'm kind of creating a pattern where a line or a segment is darker than the next segment, and this is because of the amount of light that is reflecting off their slithery body. Their fur is kind of has a plasticky nature which reflects light when light hits on it. So that's what the spots are for, to show the reflection of light on the body. Later we will see that I will also come back with some very dark inky mixture with my detail brush and actually create some dark spots as well in certain areas to hype up the contrast between the lights and darks, which I always, in all my paintings, no matter what subject I'm painting, how big or small, I always like to hype up the contrast because that is what catches a viewer's attention and makes your painting pop up. Adding on darks and adjusting the darks and lights once again, creating enough contrast in the values. Keeping on touching up, making the lights lighter and the darks darker, and creating the values to pop up and make the painting look special. Adding a little bit of highlights to the beak and the eyes as well. Once the daddy penguin is done, then I'll move on to the baby penguin. Yes, this is a daddy penguin because it is a nature of the Arctic penguins or Antarctic penguins, I'm not sure about that they actually protect the baby while often the mom goes on hunting for food. So you can see them keeping on adjusting the spots on the body to show the reflection, and creating a hint of feathers at the bottom part of the body. This was technically supposed to be a Father's Day painting. I did paint it on the Father's Day, but I could not finish off the video part on Father's Day, so delayed painting. But penguins are cute and they make a good, nice subject to learn to paint feathers as well. So there you are with the tutorial. Now once I did finish the penguin, I hyped up the background a little bit, added a little more darks and lights, and created a little bit more value adjustment in the background to give the foreground, which is the penguins, a little bit of pop. And now I'm coming back with that same inky dark mix for the body of the penguin and blocking the general outline. After I laid on the darks, just like I did on the daddy penguin's body, I am first doing the darks and then coming back with mid-tone grays, and then slowly keeping on adding white to build up the different shades on the body. And you can see that I'm using a flat brush and creating a lot of textures with that flat brush. But the only thing that you need to be careful here is the direction of the fur. So they all need to go in a certain direction. Just maintain that so that it looks natural. If the fur goes in all different directions, then it will not look natural. And we are kind of trying to get a very realistic look as much as possible. So again, slowly building up the lights. After some mid-tones, I added a lot more highlights. And there we come to the end of the painting. Hope you like it. Give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.